In this video, I'm going to be giving you a list of illusions that you have to break out of if you ever want to awaken or realize the absolute truth. So, these things which I'm going to be listing, you could say that they're true in a relative sense, on the relative plane. They definitely appear to be true, but they are not true in an absolute sense. But the problem is that the people who believe these things to be true, they don't just believe them to be only relatively true, they believe them to be absolutely true. And so, yeah, let me just get started. So, the first belief, the belief that you are your body. You are not your body. Your body changes all the time, right? It's an accumulation. Like, you could even check on science. They say that all your cells, like the cells that make up your body right now, they get changed. Like they're dying and being reborn. Like they're getting interchanged every day. Like there's literally, I'm not sure exactly if it was like 7 years, but I think it was around 7 years. After 7 years, there's like not a single cell in your body that is the same. Like it's like you're a completely new body. Like every single time, like it seems like you have one consistent body, but this body is like shape shifting, and it's all just being accumulated through consumption of food. Like food, you eat the food, right? The food is not you, right? And then you eat it, and then your body kind of like it literally turns it into itself. Like your body is made out of food. It's just an accumulation. You can say that this body is yours, but it's not you. Like you can say this is my hand, but that hand is not you. Like you could chop off this hand, right? And you'll still be you, right? You could lose your arm, it would still be you, right? You could lose your legs, you would still be you. And then see, some people might say, all right, cool, but if you lost your brain or if you damaged your brain, then you wouldn't be you anymore. You actually still would be you. It's just that your capabilities would be so impaired that what people identify as what you are, which like they believe that like people believe that they are like their personality, which is something again that is always changing. Like your personality is not something consistent. Your beliefs, your ideals, these change every day, every every week, every month, every year. It's changing. It's not consistent. There's not like one personality that you are. You have like so many different sides to your personality. But yeah, essentially, you're not your personality, right? Which I'm gonna get into that later. It's just that if you damage your brain, your cognition would be so damaged. Like you might start to forget things, or you might not be able to speak anymore. You might not recognize people. And people think that what you are is like your personality or being able to communicate, being able to recognize that thing. But that's not actually even what you are. See, it's because you've misidentified what you believe yourself to be that makes people believe that if you damage your brain or if you like lost your body, you wouldn't be you anymore. But that's actually false because the self is absolute, but I'll get to that later. But yeah, you're not your body. As I said, your cells are always being interchanged. This is just an accumulation of food. Was that food you? No, it wasn't. And then you consumed it and now it's you now. Like, see, you're just accumulating it. This is just something you accumulated. Like you can accumulate money. Is that money you? Like, no, it's not. See, so whatever you can accumulate, whatever you can like add on to you, isn't you. You can say this body is yours, but it's not you. Right? The second one, you are not your mind. This kind of links in with the personality. People believe that they are their thoughts, their beliefs. That's also false. Your beliefs change, every day you're having new thoughts. You may have recurring thoughts, which gives you the idea of solidity, that gives you the idea that it's the same mind. I explained this in a lot of my earlier videos. I call these anchors. Essentially, because in this relative plane, everything is changing and it's completely impermanent. You've never experienced the same moment twice. Like literally nothing is the same as the previous moment. Everything is always changing. Literally every single atom, like molecule in the universe is changing every millisecond. Right? So if you was to acknowledge that, then the idea of even like an individual self would already be laughable, because like you can't draw the boundary. The boundary is already like changing. It's shape shifting by the second. Right? So everything's changing, but what gives you this idea that you are still the same person are these constants, like your name, your environment. Let's say you live in this place, like I live in London, so I live in London. My name's Nathaniel. I'm a male. See, these things seem to be constant. So it seems like, oh, it's the same. Like I'm still Nathaniel. I'm still this body. Like it seems like it's the same me, right? It's like these anchors are the constants that you loop back to, that seem like it's the same you. That's kind of the structure that creates your mind. You have, because as I said, everything in this relative plane is built bottom up. Actually, from the absolute is top down, but from the relative plane, because we're within linear time, you have to build things bottom up with a foundation. So even conceptual like structures, which is essentially what your ego or your mind is a conceptual structure. These structures are built in the same way that any physical structure was built. You need a foundation. You need something at the bottom which is solid, which is constant, which never changes. Like imagine if your foundation kept on breaking down, you wouldn't be able to build on anything on top of that. So the foundation needs to be solid. So for your ego, the foundation are these fundamental axioms and assumptions which have to always remain constant, such as your name and all of these things that you identify with. You identify with these things like as a reference for your own self, even though none of these things are your own self, right? None of these, like your name, that's not who you are. Your name is just a label. You see? All of these things are just labels. But when you misidentify with them, that's how like the ego structure essentially gets built, right? And that's what makes it, like, gives it this persistent illusion that, yes, this is the same mind. Like, it's really me. This is my mind thinking thoughts. But that's actually false, right? And depending on which anchors you have, will result in which kind of thoughts you think, which kind of beliefs you have. But as I said, the mind, like, there's nothing of substance. Like, what's the mind made out of? Like, the mind itself is just a concept. There's not really even such a thing as a mind. Even your body, there's not even such a thing as a body. Where is, like, the boundary? Every single form is made out of boundaries and divisions. Like this, you would say that this is a body because it's like separate from the environment, but it's actually not separate. I'm breathing in oxygen, right? And I'm exhaling carbon dioxide. Trees are breathing in the carbon dioxide. They're exhaling oxygen. Fucking, I'm eating food which was produced from the from the earth or whatever, right? Like that. See, like I'm literally linked. Like the body or this like, so this like individual self is literally merged with the environment. You can't, it's like the subject and object. You can't have one without the other. Like they're literally like a house of cards reinforcing each other. Like, I can't exist without an environment, which means that I literally am the environment. I'm a you're essentially a cause of you're an effect of the environment because you are the environment. You're made out of the environment. You couldn't have been born if two other people didn't create you. You see, so everything is dependent on everything else. So like the notion of individuality, that's the ego. It's like the idea that you're an individual self or like an individual mind, but that's an illusion. What you think depends on what everyone else thinks, right? The actions that you take depends on the environment that you're in. Like there's no such thing as separation. It's all merged together. So the individual body, that doesn't exist. The individual mind, that doesn't exist. The thoughts that you think also depends on the current trends in the collective consciousness. What people are thinking in the collective consciousness affects what you're thinking. Even if you think like different thoughts, even if you're being like, if you consider yourself a contrarian where you go against the mainstream, still going against the mainstream, that's dependent on where the mainstream's going. Like if the mainstream's going this way and therefore you go against the mainstream, you go that way, you going that way depends on the mainstream going that way. Because if the mainstream goes that way, now you're going to go that way, you see? So it's literally all linked together. So really, there's not even an individual mind. There's not even an individual body. But let's just say that these things do exist. just because people believe that, like, just for the sake of it. Let's say these things do exist and you do have your own body and you do have your own mind, even though these are just illusions, just persistent illusions. But even though these are just illusions, right? You are not your body and you are not your mind. These are just accumulations. You didn't have your body before you were born. You didn't have a mind before you had a body. See, these are all conditional. These are all relative. These are not absolute. And you are actually absolute. But we'll get to that. So you're not your body. You're not your mind. Right? Sorry, I lost my notes. So give me 1 second. What's the next one? The physical paradigm. The idea that we live in a physical universe and that there's actually like substance. Like, for example, you think that, right? You think that you're a human with a body and a mind, and you think that you were born at a particular time, and you believe that before you were born, the physical universe existed before that, right? You think that things were happening before you were born, even when you weren't conscious of them, you think that they were still happening. And you think after you die, the physical world will continue to exist. You think that when you're in deep sleep, there's still things happening in the physical world, which is made out of matter, in time, in space, when there is no such thing as matter. I've debunked that in, I think it was mainly my part 3 of absolute truth and relative. Yeah, absolute and relative truth, part 3. That's where I mainly debunked the physical paradigm, because essentially the physical paradigm, it basically boils down to thinking that reality is made out of units, many small units, like small units. It doesn't matter if you think they're atoms or you think they're fucking it doesn't matter what you think it's made out of. You think that it's actually made out of something, like a substance. And then certain people, like when they get spiritual and so on, then they start thinking, cool, it's not matter, but it's energy, or it's consciousness, or it's this or that. But it's not even made out of consciousness. It's not even made out of energy. It's not made out of atoms, right? So what I'm essentially saying is that whatever you see right now is the only thing that there is. There's nothing behind the curtains causing this to happen. Like it seems like right now you're looking at a screen watching a YouTube video, and you think that that screen that you're looking at, that laptop or that TV, is made out of atoms. You think that you're just a subject looking at that object, and that object like has its own existence, right? It's made out of atoms, and you're just looking at it. And yes, what you're seeing may be just a representation of it, but that thing is really there by itself. And I'm just seeing a representation, but still that doesn't mean that the thing is not there. But what I'm saying is that thing, like the atoms, that doesn't exist. The TV, there's no such thing as a TV or a laptop. All there is the appearance of it, and it has no substance. There's nothing causing it. There's nothing making it happen, which I'm gonna get to later. Right? But essentially, see, it's the idea of this physical paradigm. You think that this reality is made out of something other than itself. You think that reality is made out of something other than reality. You think that truth is made out of something other than truth. You think that life is made out of something other than life, which is absurd. Of course, it's false. Like, everything is itself. That's the absolute. Everything is itself. What else could something be? What else could something be other than itself? Like, when you really, really think about it, it's absurd. You're trying to tell me like that reality is made out of atoms? Like, and the atoms are like, see, if you're saying reality is made out of atoms, then you have to at least acknowledge that the atoms are real, right? So then atoms are just reality. So reality is just made out of reality. And then if you're saying that atoms are not reality, then you're trying to say that atoms are not real, like they're not reality. So you're trying to tell me that reality is made out of something that's not reality. How does that make sense? It doesn't make any sense. Like, something can only be itself. Everything is itself. That's why I say self is absolute. This is self-realization. There's no such thing as other. This is why I kind of went into solipsism as well, but in some of my other videos. But I'm not saying solipsism as like, oh, you're the only human that exists or something. There's nothing like that. But the self is the only thing that there is. There's only self. There's no other. You've never experienced other. In your whole life, you've only experienced self. Everything's always happened to you because the self is the only thing there is. Not you as a human, but the self itself. The self is not a human. Humans are human. Humans are human. Only the self is itself. Humans are not the self. Right? Humans aren't conscious. Only consciousness is conscious. What could be conscious other than consciousness? What could believe other than a belief? Every belief you have has to be believed by another belief. Every thought is thought by thoughts. Like, only thoughts can think themselves. Humans don't think. Thoughts think themselves. And the reason why this is going to sound so like nonsensical to you is because you're so conditioned within the relative plane, within the dream, which is an illusion. It's not real. But you're so used to this because you haven't really had a direct access to the absolute. Or even though everything you experience is the absolute, but you don't recognize it to be so, right? You're so conditioned in this kind of linear thinking where everything appears to be subject to the laws of causality, which I'm going to explain even later in this video as well. And all of that is mechanical. It's mechanical. Like, one thing happens before the other, which happens before the other, and that thing causes this thing, and that thing causes that thing. But that's all in time. That presupposes time and space. But what I'm speaking about is the absolute, which is in eternity. There's no time. It's in eternity. So nothing can happen before like something else. There's no progression. There's no linear unfoldment. Everything is happening here now, all at once. Right? So there can be no like mechanics that made it happen. It's amechanical in its nature. Right? So when people try to explain how we got here, that's actually a wrong question. Like, it sounds like I'm this is a scapegoat, but you have to realize that I need to make another video on this as well, is that there are valid questions and there are invalid questions. There are actually invalid questions. For example, like, why do we exist? Realize that presupposes that there is a reason why we exist. That presupposes that there's a reason. Like, you're assuming that there's a reason. But for there to even be an answer to that question, that means that, like, you're assuming that there's a reason. But if there isn't a reason, realize that question can never be answered. Like, it's impossible to answer that question because it doesn't have an answer, right? Um, but yeah, so you are not your mind, you are not your body. There's no physical paradigm. There's no physical universe. Like, the only thing that exists is what you're seeing right now. And it may appear like a physical universe. That's the dream that you're dreaming, but it's not physical. Nothing's physical. Like, really look at it. Like, is there anything physical? There's nothing. There's only like images, sensations. Are sensations physical? Is the light you're seeing you're seeing different shapes, seeing different spectrums of light? Is light physical? Light is not physical. Can you touch it? Like, even these things, like, it feels like it's solid, right? But how many dreams have you had where you thought that wall was solid, or you thought that the ground you was running on in your dream, you thought that was solid, but it was just neurons firing in your brain. Even really, it wasn't that, but just, so to speak, couched within the relative plane, we would usually explain, that was neurons firing in your brain. But even those dreams, they're amechanical. There was no cause to that dream, same as there's no cause to this dream. Right? See, all of these things to where you're asking what caused the dream or what caused this life is presupposing that there is a reason. But what I'm telling you is that there's no reason. Reason is an illusion. Right? Let's keep going. Yeah, that was actually the next. No, that comes later. Another core assumption that there's an external God, a God external to yourself or somewhere behind the curtains that created all of this. That's an illusion. There's no external God anywhere. Have you ever seen it? No. And then you might say, all right, cool. Just because I haven't seen it doesn't mean it's not there. But let's just look at the things that we say would be a God, right? We would say it's omnipotent. We would say it's omniscient. So, like, it's all powerful. It's all knowing. It's everywhere. Like, it's everywhere and everything, right? So, if it's everywhere and everything, then of course it's here, right? Like, this is God. Like, everything you're seeing is God. If God is like everything, if God is all-knowing, then God has to be here. Like, God has to be seeing through your vantage point. How could God know, like, what you're experiencing if it's not seeing what you're seeing? How could God know what you're feeling if it's not feeling what you're feeling? And in fact, the only person that is feeling is God. That's the self. That's the absolute self. Not this, like, illusion, human, like, separate self. That's the illusion. That's the devil, in a sense. God is like the absolute self, the one that's seeing everything. That's seeing what I'm seeing. That's seeing what you're seeing. It's everywhere. Where's God not? So how could it be external, behind the curtains? Like, people act as if like in religion, they act as if like God is like outside of reality. Like, it created reality and it's like outside. And then reality is here, like, and they created it from the outside. So where, like if this is like, if God is outside, let's say this circle is reality and it's outside and this is reality and this is real. So then you're trying to tell me that God is like in some false realm. Then that would mean that God's false. Like, how could God be external? There's no external because there's no edge to consciousness, remember? There's no edge to reality. Like, where is the boundary? Like, are you trying to tell me that, like, there's an edge to space? Like, there's no edge to space because there's not even space. Space isn't even real. It's just a concept. Like, it's useful for humans to communicate, like, to act as if there's space. Same way for humans, it's useful to act as if there's such a thing as money and that these paper notes or these plastic notes mean something. But we know that there's no such thing as money. But it's a useful illusion, see? Same with space. There's no such thing as space because space is just emptiness. And emptiness doesn't have a beginning or an end. It has no edge. Like, where could the edge be? Like, where does it begin? Think about time. Like, when did time begin? You're trying to tell me the Big Bang. Or you could say, oh, time and space began in the Big Bang. So then what caused that? See, there must have been something else before that which caused that. So then what caused that? See, it's an infinite regress. And that's why I've already said many times that nothingness or nothing and infinity are the same thing. It just goes like nothingness spans back for infinity and forwards for infinity. Like, where could it end? It doesn't make any sense that it could end. So God is everywhere and everything. So how could it be external? Not like it could be, but like there's no such thing as external or internal, because external and internal presuppose that there's a boundary, but I just explained that there is no boundary. So external is internal. It's the same thing. This is where all the dualities collapse, is at the absolute. Relative is where the dualities are split. And then it's either this way or it's that way in loads of different dualities, up or down, left or right, right or wrong, good or bad, order or chaos. See, these are all just infinite different splits. You just take the one absolute, you split it infinite times in every dimension, and it just oscillates between all these dualities. And every day it creates a new amalgamation of form. And that's what we call the world. But it's an illusion. It's impermanent. That's why it's never like the same. It just keeps on changing. It's a shapeshifter. That's what a dream is. In fact, like when you have dreams at night and then you wake up, it seems like, oh, you was in a dream and now you woke up and now like you're in real life. Or even if you say that this is a different dream, no, it's actually the same dream. Like realize that nothing really changes. Like the moment you open your eyes, you're still in the same dream. It's just different contents. The dream just shapeshifted, but you've always been in the same dream your whole life. It's just one dream that never ends because it never had a beginning. Like think about every single dream you've had, right? Let's say you're dreaming at night and you find yourself I don't know, in the desert, or you find yourself at work or at school, or you find yourself like, I don't know, in a different country and you're doing something. You're hunting a lion or you're, I don't know, there's strange things happen in dreams. Like, yeah, so let's just say, yeah, or you're just having a conversation with a human. Just actually be honest and realize that every single dream you've had, you never knew how you got there. And even in dreams, it's almost like you could be in one location in a dream and then you're like in another location. Like in the same dream, you're just like shapeshifting into another location and you might not even know like how you got there. And when you're in the dream, you're not even thinking, how did I get here? You just realize, oh, I'm here, right? So you just kind of try and deal with the moment. But that dream never had a beginning. Like you can never have a dream. Like you've never gone to sleep at night and just like, oh, I just fell asleep. Now I'm dreaming now. Oh, let's see how this dream like begins and how it's going to unfold. Like, no, every single dream, you was already in the middle of it. Every single dream, you was already in the middle of it. It didn't have a beginning and it didn't have an end. It may seem like it ended when you woke up, but it actually just continued. This is the same dream. It's just different contents now. See, the dream shapeshifts always. That's how you know it's an illusion, because it doesn't even have a shape. It's formless. It's shapeless. This is what I'm speaking about, the shapeshifter. The formless. Because it doesn't have a form of its own, which is why it always changes forms. It doesn't remain in the same form for even 1 second. The moment it appears that way, it's already in another form. That's how you know it's an illusion. Right? So there's no external God. If there even is a God, then it's you. You are God. Because like God is absolute. Like what else could there be other than God? Like God is everything. So you must be God then. like just really think about it. How could there be an external God? How could there be an external God? External where? Where is it? Like, where's the outside of reality? There's no outside because there's no inside, because there's no reality, because there's no boundary. Where's the boundary between reality and like fantasy? This is what you have to realize. Reality is fantasy. It's all fantastical. It's a big joke. It's a big dream. That's the joke. That's the punchline. Is when you realize that this is all fake. It's all a dream. And don't take it seriously. When you take it seriously and you think that you have something on the line, that's when you're in the dream. That's when you believe yourself to be alive. That was another one that I was going to get to later on. Even believing that you're alive as opposed to dead. When actually you're both alive and dead at the same time. Life is death. As you're living, you're dying. People think that death is only at the moment of your last breath. No, literally, as you're living, you're dying. Like, it's literally the same thing. Every single moment that you get closer to that, like that final, like death, all of that was just a long process of dying. The moment you was born, you started to die. I know that sounds so paradoxical, but the dualities, you can't separate them. They're actually the exact same thing. That's why I made in 2 videos ago, the pain and pleasure video. Like, they're the same thing. You can't have one without the other. Like, because literally, it's literally the peak is created by the contrast like from the valley. And the valley, what makes it so low is the contrast from the peak. See, it's not even like they're 2 separate things. They're actually the same thing. It's just one sine wave. This is where they even speak about sin. Sin is just a sine wave. Life is the sine wave. Life is full of sin. Life itself is a sin. Like, there's no one who's alive who's not sinning. Because it's the sine wave. Right? So, you are not your body. Wait. Yeah. You are not your body. You are not your mind. There's no physical world. The physical paradigm is an illusion. There's no external God. There's no causality. See, in the dream, everything seems like it's subject to causality. And yes, in the relative plane, everything is subject to causality because it's an infinite chain back. So you could just think of it as like an infinite domino effect. And everything that happens was always going to happen. This is how they speak about fate and all of this stuff. Because everything is being affected by what happened before, right? But that's just the dream. This dream, which is false. See, so, and we use causality to try and explain how this got here and like why things are like this. Like, we can see, oh yeah, it's like this, but then we always say why or how. And we're assuming that there is an answer to those questions. We assume that there is a how and that there is a why. But then, see, if we say, all right, cool, like this moment got here from like if we say, like, how did we get here? And then we say, we came in like from 5 seconds ago from the past where you were speaking about something else and then now you came here. And then like, how did we get there? And then something before that and then something before that. It's the same with the Big Bang. It's just an infinite regress back. And you'll realize that you actually never get to the beginning because there's no beginning. Because like, it's literally causality. Causality is already showing that it's infinity. Because like what caused the first action? What caused the first action? In a sense, what caused the Big Bang? See, they can't even explain it because there's no explanation. Because the Big Bang wasn't the first action. It wasn't the first thing. And let's just say, for example, there is like the Big Bang was the beginning, or even if it wasn't the Big Bang, that there was like one action in particular that happened at the very beginning of time, then you would have to say that, all right, cool. So then the action must have been acausal. Nothing caused it. It caused itself. Everything else was caused by like that action as a consequence. But that action, if like nothing else existed before that, nothing else caused it, and it was the first action and it happened by itself, then it must have been acausal, mechanical. See? So it's just proving my same point. And that first action is this very moment. It's not back then because we're in eternity. This very moment. Reality is being created right now as we speak. This is reality creating itself in eternity. It's literally like an infinite, like like an infinite symbol. It just creates itself. It's a strange loop. Go on Google and type in strange loop GIF. It's like all these shapes where it's like an infinity symbol to where like they're looping around and they create, like it's creating itself. That's God, essentially. Everything else was like created or caused by something else. But God, or the absolute, is that which created itself. That's what separates it. That's what separates God from anything else. Is that it caused itself. But actually, God is not separate. Like God is this very moment creating itself. God is this very moment creating itself amechanically, acausally. And really the best description is pure magic. Because magic, like, there's not like magic is like it's magical because it's just magic. There's not even a cause. There's not like a mechanical way that it happened. There wasn't a process. You have to understand, like, this is where you really get a completely different paradigm shift from how anyone else views reality. Like, if anyone claims to be awakened or something and they're not seeing this and they're not like if they're not seeing this and they're not conscious of this, then they're not awakened. They can't be. It's impossible because like the moment you become awakened, you just become conscious of all of these things all at once. And you realize that it could not be any other way. Like everything that happens is inevitable. This moment is inevitable. The reason why it's happening is because it was always going to happen. There was no other way that it could have been. Otherwise, it would have been some other way. And this is where you can, even though you'll still suffer and you will still feel pain, but you can cut out a lot of your suffering, like the excess suffering and the unnecessary suffering. You can cut that out through realization because a lot of the suffering that you're causing yourself is by wishing that reality was another way or thinking that it could have went another way or yesterday I should have did that. Like all this regret, you know what I'm saying? I should have did that or I could have did this. No, you couldn't have. Otherwise you would have. So there's no causality or reason, as I explained before. There's no reason. There's no why. Reality is no why, no how, no what, no who, no where, no when. There is no when. The closest description you could say is here and now. But even that's false because even like that's it. Like the future is just as real as the present and so is the past. Even though all three are illusions, they're all equally illusory. Like the present, this is where some spiritual people go wrong as well, is that they start acting like the present is it, like the future and the past are not real, but the present is. But no, even the present's not real. Like how long is the present moment? Like, see, it's gone already, and it's on to the next, on to the next, on to the next, on to the next. Like, it's not even a millisecond. It's not even a micro mini second. Like, there's not even like the present is the moment it happens is gone. Like literally, the moment the present moment happens is gone. There's not even a present moment. There's no such thing as the present moment. There's no past. There's no present. There's no future. But if you wanna believe in the past and the present and the future, then they're all as equally real. The future is just as real as the present and just as real as the past. Right? They're just as real. So you can't even say that like this moment that's happening right now is more real than what's going to happen tomorrow or what happened yesterday. No, they're all real, so to speak, if you want to believe in time, even though time is not actual, like it's not like absolute. But yeah, see, that just shows that it's no when, because it's neither happening yesterday, it's neither happening today nor tomorrow. So there's no when. Like reality is happening over here, It appears to be happening over here, and it appears to be happening over there. It appears to be happening like here, where I am, Nathaniel, this physical body. It appears to be happening here, and it appears to be happening there, wherever you are. It appears to be happening here and there, but they're both equally illusory. Both of them are both illusions. Or you could say they're both real. So then you have to realize that it's nowhere either, because it's both happening here and there. So there's no particular like where, like there's no particular point where it is happening and where it isn't. It's happening everywhere, and there's no particular point in time where it isn't happening, because it's happening at all times. There's no particular why or reason, because like this is what I'm saying, the infinite cause of like chain of causality back. There's like infinite reasons. You could say there's no reason, and you could also say there's infinite reasons why this is happening. You could say, why is this moment happening? Because I felt like making a video, or because I was born as a human, or because gravity exists, or because the earth exists. Like, see, if the earth didn't exist, I wouldn't be making this video. And because the solar system exists. If the solar system didn't exist, then the earth wouldn't have existed. And then like my parents wouldn't have existed, and I wouldn't have existed. And I wouldn't have made this video, and the video wouldn't have existed, and you wouldn't have watched the video. See, there's infinite reasons. There's no one reason. So therefore, there's no particular reason. See, so there's no why, there's no when, there's no how, there's no what, nothing. There's no subject and there's no object. As I've kind of explained, that's also kind of linked in with, one sec. Yeah, so I was saying there's no subject, there's no object. As I said, there's that distinction doesn't exist, because what's that distinction made out of between subject and object? Really think about it. It's the same with reality and falsehood. Like, if you're saying there's like a real boundary between reality and falsehood, what's that boundary made out of? Is it made out of reality? Is it made out of falsehood? What's the boundary? There's no boundary between subject and object. There are no objects for a subject to perceive. That's the illusion. If you believe you're a subject perceiving objects, you're in the dream. That's what dreams are. You're a false subject perceiving false objects. Those objects are not really there. They're not absolute. You aren't really there. You're not absolute. Both of them are false. There's no subject, there's no object. No one is perceiving anything. Perception. Perception is an illusion. As I kind of explained with the physical paradigm and the subject object. Like, you're not perceiving this video, because there is no video and there is no you to perceive it. All that there literally is right now is sound, which is being sound, and there are different lights, like different colors. So for example, black, which is being black, gray, which is being gray, yellow, which is being yellow, red, which is being red. Mechanically, like there's not a you looking at black. There's not a you perceiving it. We are in a vacuum, so to speak, in eternity, at no particular time, no particular place. Like, you're in the middle of nowhere right now. You're nobody. You're in the middle of nowhere. You didn't get here by a particular process. There wasn't a reason why you came here. See, literally it's nothing. It's black floating in the empty void. No one needs to see it because it is black. It's absolutely black. So it doesn't depend on a subject perceiving it. Black is not a color. Black is not a color. Black is black. Right? So there's no one perceiving. There's no subjects. There's no objects. You are not alive as opposed to dead, because there is no such thing as life or death. Like, they're literally, within the relative plane, they're merged together. Life is death, right? Because in a sense, death is change and life is always changing. So literally for like, and this is the illusion of the progression of time, because for the next moment to be birthed, like for the next moment to like be born, the last moment has to die in a sense. So it's like this dies and then the next thing like is born, and then that thing that's born dies and then the next thing is born. So it's literally, that's like time. It's like, in a sense, the past is death. Like, it's literally living and dying at the same time. But then at the absolute level, only life is alive and death is dead. See, so there's no such thing as death, because even death is dead. So only life is alive. And life isn't like, it's not humans that are alive. Life itself is alive. And then you say, oh, so what is life then? What is life? If life is alive, then what's life? Like, life is life. It's alive. That's what it is. It's not made out of like a substance. It's not even a phenomena that is occurring. For something to be occurring, it has to be occurring within time. Life is not occurring. Life is just alive in eternity. So I'm going to recap again. You are not your body. You are not your mind. There's no physical, like, universal existence. There's no external God. There's no causality or reason for things happening. You are not alive. You do not exist, as opposed to not existing. Even the duality between existence and non-existence, that's an illusion. As you exist as something in particular, like this body, there's like, you are essentially not existing as the rest of the universe. Do you understand that? Like, as you appear to be existing as something, that's all the rest of the universe that you're not existing as. So you're simultaneously existing and not existing. Like, you can't be like absolutely just only not existing or absolutely only existing. Like, no. You're simultaneously existing and not existing at the same time. And what you're existing as depends on what you're like not existing as. See, if you're existing, supposedly, if it appears like you're existing as a human, that means you're not existing as a dog. That means you're not existing as a car. That means you're not existing as a planet. You see? Like, what you exist as, what it appears like you exist as, depends on what it appears like you're not existing as. They're literally the same thing. What you are is defined by what you're not. Can you see that? Can you see that you can't be two things at once? You can only be one thing at once. And if you're that one thing, then there's everything else that you're not. See? So, you're not conscious. So you're not perceiving. You don't exist. And you're not conscious. See, now it's like coming to consciousness. Sometimes in the past I've said that consciousness is absolute, but even consciousness is not absolute. Even consciousness is relative. Consciousness is also co-defined by unconsciousness. And realize what you're conscious of is also defined by what you're not conscious of. If you're conscious of me watching this video, then you're not conscious of what's going on in Israel right now, like in that war. If you're conscious of like this video, then you're not conscious of that starving baby in Africa that's dying. You're not conscious of what's happening in Saturn or outside of the solar system. There's like, in fact, like, no matter how much you're conscious of, there's always going to be something else that you're not conscious of. Because you can only be if you're conscious, then you're being conscious of something in particular. right? And then if you're being like conscious of nothing in particular, then that's where it kind of eclipses out, and then you're no longer conscious nor unconscious. In a sense, you'll be conscious, but there will be nothing to be conscious of. There'll be nothing left to be conscious of. And that's in a sense what it's like in deep sleep. People call that unconsciousness, but it's not even really unconsciousness. Because there's nothing to be conscious of or unconscious of. It seems like you're like in deep sleep, you're unconscious of like the rest of the world. And so to speak, it does appear like that relatively, right? It does appear like that relatively. But that's what I'm saying. See, consciousness and unconsciousness, they're both relative. Consciousness is not even absolute. It appears like that, but it's not. Only truth itself is absolute. Consciousness is just like a capacity of the absolute truth to recognize itself as being true. But even consciousness is not absolute. And humans are not conscious. Only consciousness is conscious. It appears like humans are conscious. That's definitely true. It appears that way. But as I've explained in my consciousness is an optical illusion, every appearance is not what it appears to be. At the absolute level, yes, everything is what it appears to be. Black is black. Right? But on the relative plane, in this dream, so to speak, the relative plane in a sense is just the absolute plane. Like there's no difference. The relative plane is just the absolute, but supposedly being viewed from a separate, limited point of view. The moment you're viewing the absolute from a limited, like separate point of view, then you're within the relative plane, so to speak. You're within the dream. You're within hell. You're within the wheel of samsara. You're within Maya, which is the illusion. Because the only way you'll perceive this reality accurately is if you look at it from no point of view. You have to see it from no point of view. The moment you look at it from a point of view, you're going to see so much and then you're going to exclude the rest. Like the moment you see something, that means that there's something that you're not seeing. The moment you have vision, that means you have a blind spot. So you can't even get to the absolute by seeing it or unseeing it. Like it's like you don't see the absolute truth. You don't even become conscious of it. You just become it. Or no, in fact, you don't become it. You just realize it, so to speak. Because, as I said, language is also limited. And language is symbolic in nature. And as I've explained many times in my prior videos, that symbols are never what they are indicating. Like the word black is not like actually black. So when I'm saying black is black, I'm not saying the word black is black. I'm saying, like, really, I shouldn't be saying a sentence. It should just be full stop. See, black is so black that I don't even need to say it. But it's just we're so used to conditioned to language. So that's all we have right now. But language is limited, is symbolic. So everything that I say it isn't it. But there's no other way of communicating. So you're not alive, you don't exist. There's no one perceiving, there's no subject, there's no object, no one is conscious. There is no progression, as I've explained, because this is eternity and there's no time or space. When did time begin? There's no space for like things to occur like within, and there's no time for things to unfold within. There's no time. Like what? I already explained this. So, yeah. As I said, because in this video, I made a lot of different points. So for each of the individual ones, I didn't go in depth for each of them. I just kind of went on into each of them a little bit. So maybe for each of them, I would have to make their own videos. But if there was anything you was confused about, then write in the comments. And there will definitely be something in this video that you disagree with. Like it'll be insane if even one of you watch this and agree with everything I'm saying. And I don't even necessarily want you to agree with it or even believe it, but I'm just suggesting it to you, and you can look for yourself. And if you're being honest enough with yourself, then you'll realize that yes, of course, everything is itself. What could something be other than itself? And if you realize, yes, this is eternal. So like, how could there have been a process? Like we've always been here. There was never a moment where we came here or where we was born. You was never born. You don't remember being born. That's an illusion. Someone told you was born. You believed it, but you was never born. There was no beginning to this dream, and there's no end. The same as your nighttime dreams. Nighttime dream, but see, even that, you don't even have nighttime dreams. Your dreams, that's just all the same dream unfolding. It never began and it never ends. So I'll definitely recommend rewatching this video a few times. But yeah, I think this was one of the videos where I was being very blatant and just saying it outright. I wasn't really explaining the relative plane too much. I was just saying it how it is absolutely. So yeah, I might rewatch it, see if I missed anything out, any key points that I might add in. But if not, then I'm gonna leave that one there. So yeah, let me know what you guys think.